When the smoky lights dim and reality kicks in.
Coming, clothes are incoming.
No, coming now.
Oh, where am I?
You washed up.
Sorry?
Welcome to the island of discarded women, my friend.
I used to be somebody. Are you that woman on the radio?
Your island job is peladora de papas.
Sorry, what?
Potato peeler. 87% match for your skills.
Okay, that's not. Anyway, what is the second best match then?
Host of the Island Podcast.
Are you kidding me? No, see, that's me. That's perfect for me.
I may be smiling, inside I'm dying, an act that goes straight to the head.
Oh, nice bonfire day.
Thanks. It's all part of my job on the wash up rescue team.
Yeah.
Building fires on the beach?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes we need them, If we have a lot of people that are washing up at the same time, everyone is wet. Hypothermia can set in.
Oh, right, hypothermia. Hypo meaning low, and thermia meaning thermostat.
Meaning temperature.
That's what I meant.
Right,
Tell you what I
right,
meant.
right,
Tell you
right.
what
I
meant.
love
Yeah.
words. I start every day reading the dictionary.
What?
Do not.
I do.
You do not.
I do. Words
Okay.
interest me.
Oh,
We need
okay.
words.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we don't have the tools. The vocabulary
man,
to, what
To
am I
what?
trying to say? I've
To,
lost my
to
track.
speak, to talk,
Yeah,
to
no,
to
it's
think,
not,
to
convey.
to convey. Okay, to convey.
What we
All
mean
right.
or how we feel.
Okay.
To communicate, to bond.
Okay.
Language is all we have, and I wish I could borrow from every language in the world.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, that'd
I'm
be fun, yeah.
captivated by non-English words for feelings, especially the ones that are untranslatable in our language.
Yeah.
There's a word in Brazilian Portuguese that refers to the emotions summoned when you run your fingers through someone's hair. Oh. We don't have a word like that in English.
Yeah, we do. It's called a comb.
You get what I mean. You get
I
what
get it.
I
I
mean.
get it. I'm sorry. But we don't need words to express feelings anymore, Nancy. Hello, we have emojis.
Oh, don't get me started.
Don't we? We
My
have that.
son
Yeah,
calls
yeah.
emojis the 21st century hieroglyphics.
Yeah, he's
But
not
it's such an
wrong.
easy way out,
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
true. Yep.
The happy face means you're happy.
Yeah.
Right?
The sad face means you're sad. The skateboarder means
You're skateboarding.
but you're not. You're texting. Then there's
Oh.
the turkey leg emoji. The
Yeah.
turkey leg
Yeah.
emoji.
Okay. What is that one supposed to be? Is that supposed to be like Thanksgiving?
You guys, I'm pretty sure it just means food. That's it.
Like really big, huge food?
I don't know what
But
that
how
looks
do
like.
any of these communicate feelings?
Yeah.
I love to write letters, but I never get any response from my kids.
Well.
So instead, when I want to check in with my daughter, I text a long string of turkey legs. No words, just turkey legs. And after a bit, she texts me back a longer string of turkey legs. So I know all is well.
Oh, geez. I
think.
That's great.
Every now and then I throw in a non-turkey leg emoji to see if she's paying attention. I imagine her thinking, gosh, I wonder why Mother attached a dump truck emoji to her text about my new haircut. I wonder how she's feeling. Maybe I should call her.
And what did you mean to say with a dump truck emoji, Nancy?
I meant to say, talk to me, darling.
Oh, okay. Just
So
one
the
more. Okay.
actual word,
Oh,
emoji.
Yes, Miss Wordsmith.
It's
please tell
Japanese,
us.
Right.
Nancy?
But many think it has roots in the word emotion. But it actually comes from the Japanese words for picture plus letter or character.
Oh, okay.
The word
Oh.
has no link to emotion.
Oh.
But the irony is we use emojis to express emotion.
So, okay. So I wish we could use emojis to make, like, big statements. Like, is there an emoji for, I'm sorry, are you mansplaining me right now?
There is that one with the cop
Right.
blowing a whistle like, halt.
Yeah, I think that's more about traffic. I think it's all about traffic.
Or how about an
I think that's what-
emoji for a woman president for once in our freaking lifetime?
I got that one. You know what that would be? That would be a woman
Yeah.
standing tall and proud in the Oval Office.
But Sue, that could be the first lady.
Okay. It's a woman wearing a sash that says Ms. POTUS. Thank you very much.
Or what about one for, let's finally pass the ERA amendment, people?
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
Okay, that would be a screaming face with big ERA buttons as eyes.
That'd be good. Or how about one for no, a bunch of old white guys cannot tell me what I can and cannot do with my body.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. That's a
Honestly.
bunch of old white guys with bad comb-overs and a big red line through it.
That'd be good. I'd
That's
like
what that one is.
I'd use
Yep,
that
yep,
one
yep,
every day,
yeah, right,
honestly.
right. Yeah.
How about an emoji that says, yes, I'm an older woman,
Mm-hmm.
and you can ignore me if you'd like, but I'm very proud of my years on this earth.
Oh,
Yeah.
heck
Okay, I have one for. I'm sorry. Why am I being paid less than him when I've been in this job a lot longer?
Yeah, or how
Yeah?
about no, I won't forgive you. You've hurt me enough. I'm done.
Whoa, you okay?
Day, are you all right?
Yeah, that was in the past. Really, like I moved on.
Okay, but really?
Yeah, I mean, I was young. I was 14 and he was like 19.
Wow.
So I was like just really naive and I thought everything would work out even if he was dealing with his own problems. Although it is funny because I never knew exactly what it was. I just knew when he succumbed to it. Like he got angry that I wasn't talking to him correctly or processing it correctly or fixing it correctly.
Well, yeah.
But of course, I had faith it would work out, that it would get better, and it didn't. But you guys, the beautiful thing about faith is that it's not something that you just feel. It conjures something up in you, and it pulls you towards a direction. And I gained faith in myself. I knew that I was stronger than who I was when I was with him. So I left.
Good for you, Day. Good for you, Day.
That's
Yeah.
powerful, Day.
So, but you're with someone new, right? I mean-
Yeah, I am. And he's super sweet.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, niya kulusya kulunju.
Okay, what
does that
what did you
Well,
say?
okay, it basically means like you are my heart, the air that I breathe.
Oh.
But
Yeah.
it literally means you are my liver and my breathing tubes.
That's romantic.
It sounds so sweet. And,
I know, and we have other lines like which in Google Translate it says the buyer is beautiful as long as you keep the odor on.
So odor like perfume, like keep the perfume?
No. It really means, hey girl, you're so pretty. I bet when you fart, it smells good.
No.
No, seriously. Yeah, they just don't translate well.
Oh.
Okay, but the best one is okay,
I'm afraid to ask, but what does that one mean?
it sounds cute, right? It is cute. It says, what did your parents eat that made you cute?
That's precious.
I know.
Well, what, okay. So what did your parents eat, Day? Because you are super cute.
Turkey.
I look Latina, and I am. But what if I told you that I haven't been a Latina all my life? I grew up in Guatemala City until my early 20s. There, I had a long and promising career. Everything was going great. Suddenly, I had this opportunity to come directly to Minnesota to participate in a cultural ambassador program where people from all over the world get together and share their culture. Well, that experience led to a job offer, and later my contract got extended, and that's how I stayed in this beautiful state, and I call it home. But the transition from living in Guatemala to my life here in the US, it wasn't easy 20 years ago. Minnesota was too far north and cold. Although people were friendly, I felt very isolated. And somehow it also felt as if I was the only person that looked different in the entire neighborhood back then in St. Paul. Initially, I thought I knew enough English with what I was taught in school. Since I was in kindergarten, I knew the numbers, days of the week, colors. I am, you are, he is, she is. This is the way I wash my face, I wash my face, I wash my face. But once here, I realized that I didn't even know how to ask for directions. So I had to really learn English. The good thing was that I was surrounded by only English speakers 24/7, and that helped a lot. People around me knew that I didn't speak much English, so they would talk to me very slow and loud. We have a meeting. I think I learned fast, but on the other side, I felt as if I was missing something important. I rarely heard people speaking Spanish around me. I felt disconnected. My life was very different from what it was back home. Most days, I was very lonely. I missed my big family, my 44 cousins, the big family reunions with all of us talking at the same time. That's why if I heard people speaking Spanish in a public place, for example, if I was in the bus and I heard people hopping on and saying, "Este bus nos lleva a la universidad," my little antennas went up, and then I would run towards them and introduce myself and say, "Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Ustedes hablan español?" "Sí, yo también." "¿De dónde son?" As if I had just discovered the cure for coronavirus. And they were also very excited. After all, at that time, you hardly ran into people speaking Spanish in Minnesota. So they would go, "Oh, yo soy de Perú. Mi amiga es de Colombia." "Ah, sí, qué bien, qué bien. Yo de Guatemala." "Oh, sí. ¿Y dónde viven?" "Yo vivo en San Paul." "Ah, yo también, qué maravilla." It didn't matter where they were from. It felt as if I had run into my cousin. They were family because, they spoke like me and they looked like me. "¿Y a dónde van?" "A clases." "Ah, yo al correo." A ver, ¿cuál es tu número de teléfono? Nos podemos juntar un día a hacer algo." And we would even exchange phone numbers. And that's how I made most of my friends at that time. We're in the same boat, We missed our home. We came here alone, and now we have each other so that we can navigate together our new life. From little things such as reapplying for a visa, opening a bank account, to more serious things like being worried about your friend's family in Chile because of an earthquake, or political unrest in your friend's hometown in Mexico. Once here, our lives get connected. If I had stayed in Guatemala, my circle would have been much smaller. Over there, nobody cares if my great-grandma, an Italian farmer, had planned to immigrate to Argentina, but decided to settle in Guatemala instead because their boat broke. Also, over there, nobody questions my indigenous ancestry, which we all possess. I never thought I would be any different than I thought I always was. But here, I am a Latina. I remember the first time somebody used the term Latina on me. I wasn't sure if they were referring to me, but then it hit me. I heard in this country, people like me are called Latinos. I never thought one day I would be one until then. Over time, I discovered that it does have some weight. All of a sudden, I got a new name, but not just any name, but an identity which I had to learn to embrace. It was a little confusing. I didn't know if it was just a label or a thing that people need to place you in a certain box to know how they can deal with you. I noticed that it was very common also for Latinos to adopt characteristics that are part of the stereotype, because that makes it easier for us to assimilate. For example, my friend from Spain teaches her students the song "I Love Tacos" and decorates her classroom with cactuses and calaveras. Yeah, from Spain, imagine. We're all supposed to be terrific dancers. I also thought, well, if I'm supposed to be Latina, I'll be a damn good one. That's how I learned to dance salsa in Minnesota. Back home in the 90s, we would call salsa everything that sounded tropical. If it was a merengue, that's salsa. Bachata, no, that's salsa. But here, I got to hear and dance the real salsa from Cuba and Puerto Rico. I also learned to eat more spicy food with jalapenos and all the fixings. Because let me tell you, in Guatemala, our food is not spicy at all. I remember going to an audition as an actor to one of the biggest theaters in the Twin Cities and perhaps in the country, and being told that because of my fair skin complexion, I didn't look Latina enough for the part. But over time, I came face to face to the reality that this was something bigger than a label. This authenticity that I thought I had to have was much more than a mere appearance. Little by little, I saw the real stuff. The many times you're passed over a promotion, the many ways you feel misunderstood, the boss who you're convinced doesn't see you the way you are. How in the upper management structure of your company, nobody looks like you. And every day, you realize how difficult it is to move ahead in your career. Not just because you're a woman, but also because people see you in a way that is not the way you see yourself. And that is probably affecting your future. Then you see what happens around you. What happens to friends who are less fortunate to have their papers in order and have to spend their days in hiding, hoping to never get deported? More recently, seeing children who were born in the same place I was born, being treated like animals, raped, separated from their families because of where they are coming from. It seriously hits me now. Who is their voice? It becomes more and more clear that this label that I didn't know I had 20 years ago has become ingrained in the fabric of my journey. And to me now, it's an honor to be called Latina or Latinx, which I don't take as just an any name, but it's a call for equality and justice. It's a call to the visibility of the struggles of people from many different places. What if we embrace yet a brand new identity that includes people instead of dividing people? The truth is, we all learn from each other. We need each other. I learned that there is something powerful and life-saving when we get close enough to a stranger just to talk, I don't know, about how they're doing, no matter where they're from. And like when I was in the bus, porque siempre van a haber tormentas y es mejor que estemos juntos para superarlas. Así que sigan adelante, latinos. A veces hay que abrirse camino, abrirse paso por donde no lo hay. This reminds me of a beautiful poem by Machado that says, "Wayfarer, there is no way. Make your way by going farther. Caminante, no hay camino. Se hace camino al andar." Gracias.
Silvia Pontaza. Thank you, Silvia. So in 2008, we said we were ready for the first woman president. It was time. Then the young black guy entered the race, and it became kind of a tricky, well, whose time is it to be the first? Well, ultimately became time for the first black president, which was terrific. So in 2016, again, we said, we are so totally ready for the first woman president. But not that one. No, she's not right. She's too fill in the blanks, right? Yes. She won more votes, but anyway. And now it's 2020. And we've been saying loudly for months, oh my God, is absolutely the right time for the first woman president. Yes, yes, yes. But not any of these. No. I mean, they're great. They're great. They're so competent. But they're just not right. They're not for this crucial time in our history. So now we, who are Democrats, have two white guys still standing. This one will do this, oh, but not that. And that one will do this, but not that. And neither is perfect, but we're told it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Just remember the Supreme Court and the environment and healthcare and DACA and just vote for whoever's on the ballot. Just do it. Just do it. They don't have to be perfect. Then in 2024, again, we'll say, oh my gosh, it's so past time for the first women president. Come on. But not that one, and not that one, and oh my God, not that one. They're great. Yes, of course they're smart, but they're just not right, for this pivotal time in our history, or this sensitive time in our history, or this dire time in our history, or this history time in our history. I will never forget the images of the older black men and women weeping in Grant Park the night that Barack Obama won the election in 2008. And many said later that this wasn't a dream that anyone thought would ever come true in their lifetimes. 100 years after winning the right to vote, I am still holding my breath. I am waiting, I am wishing, I am praying for a woman to be elected president. But when will we know if it's the right time? I mean, hopefully whenever it is, somebody will put out a memo, because I don't want to miss it. Elizabeth Warren told little girls at her rallies, I'm running for president because that's what girls do. Pinky pledge. But only if you're the right girl. This soapbox was brought to you by Flip 'em the Bird. When you simply don't have the words, let your gloves say it for you. Shop their fingerless gloves and knit hats at flip'emthebird.com.
When there's no words, you can flip 'em the bird.
The vice presidency doesn't count.
So there is something they do at my school. It's called the Odyssey. It's a simulation where we are put into a scenario that possibly our parents and grandparents went through to get to refuge. Though you don't have to be a child of refugees to participate, anyone can join in. Anyway, I thought, okay, sure, this sounds interesting. At the start of it, it seemed just fine. We had all gathered in the gym of this campsite up north, but everyone was wearing all black. And I came in with my cute little pink light jacket and my new white Nike shoes. As we mingled and talked, all of a sudden, a pair of ours came in with black face paint marks on his face and arms. And though this guy was known to be welcoming and open, his face was stern. And that caught my attention. Then another pair came in, agitated and asking for opium. He screamed when he couldn't get any and became sharp with his words. Then a mother wandered in with a blanket, and she was asking where her baby was. She had lost her baby. They were putting us through a simulation. We were lined up in lines of 2, side by side. Then we began marching. The leader explained where the boundary lines were, which were marked by glow sticks hanging on the trees. If we saw them, then we knew we were heading outside the area and needed to turn back around. We were marched on a path through the woods, then past a campfire site. That was our refuge. As we walked, it visibly got darker outside. When we finally reached who knows where on the middle of this forest path, the leader told us once he blew the whistle, the simulation would begin. When the whistle blew again, it was over. We would meet at the fire. We were sent off 2 by 2 and started running. There were no clear paths to run on, no broken shrubbery for me to step on, no clearing ahead. But I had to run, hide, something. Then I heard the whistle, followed by yelling from the soldiers who were performed by our peers. They taunted and immediately captured some people. I just kept going. As I crawled through twigs and moist dirt and got cuts and who knows what, blurring my vision and tearing my clothes, it got darker and colder. I found a place to hide, and I laid there, still and quiet. I didn't know where I was, what I was laying on, how close I was to the fire, or how far. From the distance, I could hear yelling, and firecrackers set off to sound like gunshots. And I just held my breath, hoping those sounds stayed at a distance. It was cold. I stayed there for what felt like an eternity. I wanted to move, to see more around me, but I was scared someone would get me, so I didn't budge one bit. I wanted to stop the people crawling by and see if we could go together, but I was scared we would all get caught. I'd rather hide and survive than get captured. And you see, what I was going through was 1/1,000,000th of what my grandmother had to go through. And that made me realize that I am so privileged. When she fed Laos, she had my mother, a baby on her back, in-laws who also had babies looking to her for guidance while my grandpa had already fled. It hurt her, but she would keep my mother from crying by feeding her opium, making sure not to give her too much, otherwise she would kill her. She climbed vines to get over mountains. When you climbed, you pray you and your child wouldn't fall. If you guys fell, you die. That's what she told me. She was captured multiple times and put to work in internment camps where they were barely fed and worked hard labor. And many people died. Many children died. My mother almost died there. My grandmother did and gave what little she had to a shaman so my mother would be healed. After all, my mother was the only blood family my grandmother had during this war. She crossed the Mekong River where many Hmong people drowned or were shot to their deaths. And she made it to a camp in Thailand, Ban Vinai, with her in-laws and brought my mother here to America for safety. Why specifically America? The Secret War of Laos was from 1964 to 1973. It was led by the CIA, which at the time was unknown to American knowledge, and today, many Americans still don't know about it. During this time, the US dropped more than 2 million tons of ordnance in Laos. During 580,000 bombing missions, which is equivalent to bombs dropping every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day for 9 years. Now, see, I took this factual information from legacesofwar.com, but I know these facts from the stories of my family that survived running away, running from, and trying not to run on them. Americans recruited the Hmong people to help them navigate the land in Laos, hoping that together we could fight the communist Pathe Lao. We, the Hmong people, were seen as traitors for aiding the Americans, but we stood by them. Then, the Americans were told to abandon us. They left us to flee from a country that was angry with us for fighting against them. We were dying because there wasn't enough food, dying because we were escaping for refuge, dying because communists were killing us. Eventually, when the Americans did come back to help, we were allowed to immigrate here. That's why America. Yet here we are in 2020. If you don't know, we are facing threats of being deported back to Laos. You'd think the people who should be educated would be educated. Anyways, I laid there on the ground, cold and damp, for an hour and a half until I heard that second whistle blow. When I thought it was safe, I ran out and I saw my friends and we hugged and we were like, oh my God, we survived, we did it, let's go home, we're done. And then the leader came. He told us to be quiet and he marched us back to the gym and we debriefed. It felt like the simulation would never end and I just wanted it to end. But here I am again privileged, because it did end for me, but not my grandma. When I got home, I told her about the simulation, and she told me that the war had never really left her. I was shocked to find out that she still wakes up afraid that the soldiers would get her, afraid of the gunshots and bombs that were near her, afraid that she can't save everyone. With how things are going right now, I'm afraid she still isn't safe, that we aren't safe.
Day Yang.
You're listening to the roar of the female humans.
And now please welcome my guest for the conversation, Amy Matthews. Amy, come on up. Come on up. And she gets to make a dramatic entrance because she's all the way in the back. Amy and I look like we're from different seasons.
Maybe just different islands.
I know. Oh, different islands.
Yeah.
Oh, different islands. That's what it is.
Nordic.
Yeah, Nordic.
Caribbean.
Still feels like it's cold outside. And tropical, so cute, bare arms. So, Amy, you are a popular TV host of multiple home improvement shows, who became a licensed contractor and remodeler. And you are the co-founder of this incredible nonprofit that supports survivors of domestic abuse, and Now She Rises. Yes. So lots to talk about here. But let's start at the beginning. Your dad used to swim in Moore Lake.
He did.
Yeah, you grew up around here.
He was a Fridley baby, like down the road.
And for the podcast listeners, Moore Lake is just outside the Crooners Supper Club.
Yep.
Hey, let's all go swimming. No. If you're dressed like her, you could. Okay. So you came from a very arts-oriented childhood.
I did.
So you were telling me that you started playing the violin at 3.
Yes, it was a gift that my parents gave me. I mean, at 3.5, I had a violin in my hand. I studied the Suzuki method. And it wasn't a thing where they said, you know, oh, play as long as you want, and if you're not really into it, you can give it up. It was like, no, like my mother would be like, I can't hear you. You know, I'd be downstairs in my dad's like workroom office, you know, playing, and it was just part of our life. And that was a gift that gave me, you know, before there was even a violin that could fit into my arm. It was a butter box wrapped with tape that had a ruler on it. So you learned how to stand and hold the instrument.
So you had like a fake violin that you used?
I had a fake violin.
Out of a butter box?
Yeah, well, who's going to give a 3.5-year-old like a real violin?
I thought they had those baby violins.
Well, they do, but you had to first know how to stand, and they had to know that you weren't going to take your butter box and like beat it against. Oh, right. You know,
I don't want to do this anymore.
Legos. Yeah,
I don't want to play the same notes.
Right.
So you thought for a while that maybe that was your thing, that you were
did.
going to be sort of a violinist and go off and be in big orchestras or whatever.
I was committed to it, but it was part of my whole entire high school and upbringing. And although a lot of people do things in high school that they'll never think about, that was what I was considering. Yeah. That was my trajectory.
At the same time, in high school, you're also getting involved in acting and singing and getting bit by the theater opera bug.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And then you were telling me that you attended Tanglewood Institute in Massachusetts, which is a gorgeous place. If you've never been there, go.
Yes.
But you entered for both violin and voice.
I did. It was a weird, pivotal turning point in my life at like 17, which is weird to think back on because our lives have so many of those pivotal points that are really make a difference later and not really at that point. And I was at McPhail, and I was outside my teacher's office, and I saw a postcard for an audition, and I went in and I talked to him, and he goes, oh, yeah, you should audition for that. It's I don't know. You know, it was kind of like, well, we'll see if you get in kind of thing, meaning just go practice some more.
You do have this butter box, and I don't know if they actually will let you play the butter box in Tanglewood, but you can try.
Violin, right? Yeah, you're going to have to take the real violin for that one. But I said I'd been singing a lot, and I wanted to audition. I could either audition for the opera program or for violin. And it was like violin was a no-brainer because that's what I did. Yeah. And so I said, oh, this new vocal thing, I want to explore that. And so I auditioned, and I actually got in for both and had to make a decision which one to go to. And I decided the vocal performance, and that summer was Leonard Bernstein was conducting us. And it was his last summer alive. He passed away the October, like 2 months after I finished that program. So he, you know, I guess goosebumps. We were singing Candide, and he was, you know, conducting the orchestra. And it was just one of those things that you can't, you know, you look back on that, and I knew it was amazing at the time, but I didn't know what that was at the moment. And
but that's okay. But now you have that memory to go, oh my God, he was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's just so cool. And then you went on to Boston University.
I did. Yeah.
And to AMDA. And tell us what AMD is.
So AMDA is the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. So I spent 2 years at Boston, which was like a direct line from Tanglewood because BU runs that student program.
Right.
And when I was in Boston, and we'll segue back to the actual reason I left. Part of it was because in the opera program, I had a big voice, I had a mature voice, which is very hard to handle when you're a young singer. So all my friends that were these, you know, ingenue young soprano singers were getting all these roles and doing these things. And my teacher was like, you know, a bigger voice takes time to mature. You know, when you're 40. And I was like, oh my God! They're like, you'll hit, when you're 40. And I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna be dead. I'm gonna
I'm not
die
waiting
of
that
something
long.
before,
No,
I was 20 when they're
Yeah,
telling me this.
yeah.
But I loved the medium of theater, outside of just the music. I
Yeah.
love the medium of television and film. I loved the storytelling of all of it. I loved radio. And so I wanted to move forward from just that musical world and into a world which AMDA provided in New York City,
Yeah.
where we were studying these all different mediums of storytelling, and that's what performance is to me.
Yeah.
And so that's where I went. and what I
Yeah.
did.
So then from there, you became sort of a living actor in New York City, and you were traveling the world performing on high-end cruise ships.
I was.
Yes. We won't talk anymore about cruise ships right now.
I might not
Anyway.
recommend it now, but at the time it was a fantastic way to see the world.
Oh no, of course it still is fantastic to see the world. We might just have to wait for a little bit. Anyway, then you come home after 9/11, and you're sort of rediscovering the town and like, wow, it's gotten really big and really cool, and there's like all these cool people.
Yeah.
And you're involved in like the theater and doing commercial work, and you get an audition for a brand new home improvement show called Bathroom Renovations.
Another pivot point where it
Yes.
was like, oh, what's that?
But tell us about that, because you were just telling me that it was just an audition. It was just like, whatever.
Well, I always have the mentality in the acting world that you show up. I had an acting teacher that told me once, your job is not to perform, your job is to audition. Just show up, bring your A game, just always be there, which I think is a great lesson in life no matter what job. You're not going to get every job, but you are going to get the job that's right for you.
Right. And you were telling me that they called in for this. They weren't sure what they were looking for, so they called in contractors and, I don't know, electricians and actors and...
It was like anyone from 25 to 55, any race, male, female, like any skill set. I mean, it was just across the board. They were like, who wants to do a home improvement show? Like, who can walk and talk and like hammer at the same time? I don't really know exactly what they were looking for, but I went through the first audition process, and then I got a call back. But funny thing in Minnesota is when callbacks happen on like the worst snowstorm in the world, you're like, I didn't want that job. I don't need to go to that callback. I wasn't gonna get it anyway. But I had a friend that said, you're gonna book it. If you book it, I'll buy you a steak dinner. I was like, on. So I went, and I ended up, I wish I still had the tape of that first audition,
Yes, of
because I
course.
think it's really scary. But, I was like cutting copper pipe, and things were like flying.
You know, like you do.
Well, it was,
And just so you know, at auditions, we don't normally cut copper pipe, so just so you know. Go on.
Yes, well, I cut the pipe, and I got the job.
And you got the job, and you
Yes.
got the job. She got the job.
I got the
Yes,
job.
yes. But what's interesting to me is you were telling me that when you were 14, your church had sort of a work program. It was like a summer thing.
It was.
Yes, and you traveled around the country building homes or repairing homes or helping people in underserved neighborhoods. So you had a taste of that already.
Yes.
At 14.
I
Tell us
did.
about that a little bit.
Yes, we went out on what was called work camps, which now I hear that name and I'm like, why didn't my parents even let me go?
Yeah,
that sounds
right.
just terrible.
Yeah, it does kind of.
Send your kid. They really wanted to get rid of me for 2 weeks in the summer,
Yeah.
apparently. But we would travel and we would repair homes for families in need. And we didn't know anything, but we were put on these crews of 6 or 7 people from all over the country.
Yeah.
So we weren't with the people that we knew, and there was always a project manager and someone
okay.
who could teach us home improvement. And we would be set in these scenarios that were really pretty crazy and fun, not like dangerous, but they were like, here's the tool, there's the thing, and you're like, did anybody understand what they were saying?
Hit the thing with the thing, and then it becomes a thing.
And you
Yeah.
figure it out. But the reward, number one, I think realizing privilege. Like, I didn't grow up with a family that had a lot of money. I mean, my parents were very hard workers, but it wasn't like we had a fancy life. I remember my mom saying, hey, this violin lesson is $35. You
Right.
better practice.
With a butter box. So come on.
Practice your butter box, because
Yeah.
that butter box also costs $2.
Right.
So I think that seeing how people lived was an eye-opener
Yeah.
for a 14-year-old, where we hear about things and think about things, but to be a young person in those scenarios and really realizing that it wasn't about making things pretty, it was about functionality and safety in a home, and that was the first thing I learned. So that was incredibly valuable. And so I had some skills from that.
No, I know, but it's interesting. So then you do that show, you do Bathroom Renovations, and then you go on and you do all these other shows. You become this sort of DIY queen. You do Sweat Equity and This New House and Renovation Raiders, and in the meantime, you get your contractor's license,
Yep.
so that you're saying, I'm legit. I'm not just a pretty face up here. I can really remodel your house, sucker. And am I putting words in your mouth at all?
No, I mean, I didn't. Maybe I
The
should
sucker
have
part,
said that.
maybe not the sucker part. But everything else?
You're much more confident than I was. I was like, hi, I'm here to renovate your... It was really interesting to see how people responded to a woman in a man's industry. It is still a man's industry. I go to get my contractor education renewal credits, which I'm really behind on, which this is reminding me I have to do that tonight. But it was the only place in the world as a woman that I would go, sit in the continuing ed class for the day, and then when we'd all break to go to the bathroom, I was like, see ya, suckers. No line in the women's bathroom. And there was like 20 guys trailing out. And the guys didn't get it. They were just like, what? And I just thought it was a fun. So as a woman in a men's industry, there's a lot of things to deal with, that being a small part of it. But a lot of very unique things where I think what I have taken and still take from it is that you can't, when you try and be an expert in all things, you're incredibly hard on yourself. But when you keep a beginner's mind in everything that you do and don't worry about trying to prove yourself and I know this or I know that, constantly being learning. I mean, you put 10 contractors in a room, you have 10 different ideas. So finally I decided, I'm going to have one of those ideas. I'm not going to worry about what anyone else is doing. And you know what? My idea usually worked really well.
Of course
so
it
once
did.
you own your own understanding of it, it became really powerful.
Okay, so then you're at the top of your game. You're doing all these TV shows. And in 2008, during an episode of Sweat Equity, you meet your future husband.
This, we can just insert a novel of red flags. And that's the whole conversation, just red flags.
This is the red flag section. But now, Sweat Equity, the homeowners do a lot of the work. So it's not like they go away for dinner and they come back and their home has changed.
No, it's not like a dramatic renovation. I mean,
Right.
I'm coming in to essentially help people figure out where their budget is best served, what's their best return on investment, how to do certain aspects of their project, lead them through, but they're going to do their thing, and we're going to come and tape it for, for a show, which is great. Yes. And I did, and this, it wasn't until a year plus after finishing that show did the person contact me and say, hey, do you want to go out for a drink?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, I
The
guess
guy
so.
from the house that we did with you and your wife?
Yeah,
That guy. Right,
and I
that
was
guy.
like, oh, aren't you? Oh, and I actually thought, I think I told you this, I actually thought I was getting together with he and his wife.
Yeah.
But then I would show up, red flag, at the bar, and he's by himself. And I was like, I'm not that naive, but it was just one of those weird, like, well, it's awkward because it was a professional relationship.
Right.
So
Right,
it's
of
just
course.
awkward.
Right.
And there were so many red flags at that moment, and then I didn't call him for a year afterward. That was smart.
Yeah. And then?
2010, I don't know. Called again. Do you want to go out? Well, okay, well, maybe things are different.
Yeah. Things change. People change.
No, they don't.
Okay.
They don't. They don't.
So, red flags aside, and of course, some of those red flags are hindsight. There's some of those that are hindsight, and there's some of them are there some of them that are redder now than they were at the time?
Yes, like fuchsia-y, kind
Yeah.
of flaming. They are
And
like
they're
a ball
waving,
of
they're
fire
like
in a
waving
canyon
like this,
coming
like
at
that,
you.
yeah.
Yes.
And
it's
before
that.
they were just little toothpicks and little flags on the toothpicks.
Well, it's an amazing exercise
Just
in
as an
psychology.
analogy.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
amazing how, as humans, we assess a situation and we choose what information to release based on what our desires are, right? We choose to, I'm okay with that, or, oh, they can't be so bad because if A is true, then B must be okay.
Yeah.
We are constantly having a conversation with ourselves about everything all day long and everyone we communicate with. It's fascinating when you think about it from that perspective.
Yeah.
And I laugh at these red flags. It's not a funny scenario.
No.
I can laugh at myself now, and
Right.
that is part of healing is,
Sure.
is laughter.
Yes.
So, we
yes.
can laugh at that.
And I agree. I totally agree. But as you're sort of dismissing the red flags or deciding not to, you guys become a power couple. Mm-hmm. Good looking, charming, successful, and you're traveling all over the world, and you're doing your thing, and he's doing his thing, and you're meeting him in Africa, and you're meeting him in Paris, and you're doing all this kind of thing.
Right.
And there's behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
He drinks. Mm-hmm. But then there were lovely times, and there were romantic times, right?
Right.
You were telling me, can you share the Paris and the pills?
Oh, the pills. Well, this is funny because everything has like a two-story to it. It has what I know now, when I can look at abuse behavior and go, control, coercion, manipulation, this. And at the time it was like, he wants me to have his baby and he's never wanted a baby before and I think it'd be so fun to have a baby. I didn't ever really talk like that. But, you know, it was like...
You just thought it. That's your inside voice.
Yes, it was like, well, maybe I do want it. This would be amazing, and we're doing this thing, and we're this power couple, and yes, let's do this, and I'm not getting any younger, and throw caution to the wind, and throw my birth controls into the Seine, because that's a good idea.
Yes. How
So-
romantic is that?
It's, took pictures of like So I got pregnant in Paris.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you look at life and the choices we make, I wouldn't trade that for the world because I have my son and he's my life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
yeah.
trade it for the world. So
Yeah.
there is not an ounce of regret in that.
Yeah.
But there is the reminder that now may be an opportunity to have other people see those red flags coming down the pipe.
True,
right?
of course, or just to be able to share that perspective. So, all right, so your son is born, and the abusive behavior from your husband is getting worse.
Yes.
But there's still good days, and there's still nice moments you were telling me about. And you were telling me how you still sort of were hanging on to this, as we do, this hope that things will change, or things will get better, or I can help change the situation, or I can help him get better, but it's a myth.
It is a myth, and let me just delve right into an icky part that I think will help people understand, because I can talk around it, and it's hard. I've only really started talking about things more recently, and I remember the first time I shared anything, I realized I talk for a living. I get paid to do talks and share and teach and do it on television, and I started talking about my own experience, and I didn't recognize myself, you know. So there's some nerves in there. So, to give you an example, in my life, I'd never dealt with depression or anxiety. I'd never taken medications for any of those things. I got to a point, my son was a little over a year old, and I was going into my doctor and saying, I'm not doing well, I'm having such anxiety, but I couldn't tell them what was happening at home. I couldn't tell them the type of things. There's all different types of abuse, and nowadays, as we talk more about it, we understand that there is physical, there is verbal, there is emotional, there is psychological, and within psychology, they talk about how bad verbal and psychological abuse is compared to physical abuse. It has the same response on your nervous system, okay? Yeah. So whether you're getting a black eye or whether someone is telling you that you are truly worthless and manipulating something about your integrity, it's gonna affect you the same way. And PTSD is very real for people who've experienced both. So for me, I got to a low point. My son was a year old. I went in my doctor and I said, I didn't say what was going on in the home because I was absolutely embarrassed. And of course, the rule was you don't talk about anything that we're dealing with. You don't say anything. You don't tell anyone anything, right? Yeah. It was complete isolation. I mean, I was losing my girlfriends. People didn't want to be around him because they didn't like his attitude. I mean, it was just, everybody kind of knew, but I kept hoping. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I had hit such a low point that I had a suicide hotline phone number and a domestic abuse hotline number in my nightstand. And I'd called both of them. And I just was lost. Yeah. I was completely lost. And there was a night that I decided that he was right, that I probably shouldn't be here anymore, that the world was better off without me. And I remember him screaming at me and saying, "You're not the woman that you could be." And just these things ringing through my head, and I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to take the pills, because I'd researched which pills wouldn't actually kill me, but which pills I could take in order for, if someone got to me in time, that I would be okay.
Whoa.
Later, I find out that he'd known that. He'd known I was researching this stuff. He'd known that I was taking those steps. And if you love your partner and they're hurting, you think you would say, hey, babe, what's going on with you? Let's get some help.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. Wow.
He was ready. He would have preferred to be the victim of me doing that, and then he'd have the narrative of, oh, my wife killed herself. I mean.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do take those pills, and you end up in the ER. Mm-hmm. Because you're trying to escape.
It was an absolute cry for help.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember getting into the ambulance that night and thinking and looking back on the house, which was all this warm, beautiful light, and him then, after screaming at me, then changing all of his behaviors through you're crazy, you didn't really take those pills. And I just kind of, it wasn't even a fighting back night. It was just like you should probably call 911. no, I'm calling your sisters, you're crazy. Da, da. No, you should probably, and then I started to panic, like, you should probably just call 911. And I remember when the ambulance got there, going into the ambulance and sitting there before the drugs had really hit me yet, and looking back and seeing like the beautiful light of the home and him sitting on the stairs and crying, and me going, oh, this ambulance is so quiet.
Wow.
No one is yelling at me. This is so peaceful. And then going, oh my God, like
Wait a
somebody
minute.
help me.
Yeah.
It was surreal to have to go, what the hell happened to my life? I'm supposed to be in control. I've got everything going on. Everything's great. Outside appearance is totally fine.
Right.
And there was a bottom of the barrel moment.
That rock bottom, yeah. Wow, okay, so you get through that, clearly, and eventually you get into therapy.
Yes.
And it was fascinating when you said to me, the first time, you tried some different therapists, and finally one just kind of felt right.
Mm-hmm.
And you said the first time that you started actually telling the stories, because even when you had been with other therapists, you were not telling these stories.
Mm-mm.
So now you're starting to tell these real stories, and you said you heard your own words coming out of your mouth, and it shocked you. It's
I
like,
did.
wow, okay, this is really... Then the focus started to shift to self-care.
Mm-hmm.
You're still married. The abuse is still happening. But tell us about the new awareness that you have at that point.
I think it was me starting to seek truth. So it wasn't even that I was empowering myself with a self-care. It was like, wait a second, 2 and 2 don't go together. What someone's saying is not the reality of what I'm living in. It was living in cognitive dissonance.
Okay.
Which is a horrible experience and causes such trauma and confusion, because what is real is not what you're being told is real.
Yeah.
And so when I started to seek truth, and I started to put 2 and 2 together, I'm like, I know better. Oh, this makes sense. It's not the answers. I found no answers I wanted to know. I found everything that killed me again, and was heartbreaking, but it was power.
Yeah.
I mean, there's power in truth.
Yeah.
And so having her telling me, hearing myself say things back to her and going, wow, this is worse than I thought it was. This is not going to end well.
Yeah.
There's not an option for this to end well except for me to end it.
Yeah.
And then having my eyes opened and having her say, what do you need to help you to get out of this?
Yeah. And you were saying that one step was you finally shared this with your family.
Mm-hmm. They'd heard some of the verbal. Like, some of my family had stayed in the house and had experienced some rages and some things, and they'd heard it. But it was like weird. And my family talks about everything. I'm best friends with my sisters, and we're close. And so they knew about the drinking. And so at that point, it was like, oh, if I can get the drinking out, I think I can fix everything, right? Because I don't know, as women, we're kind of fixers.
Yeah.
And you think about your child, you think about your family, you think about, like, I was going on the opportunity and the love and hope that I had for what it could be, as opposed to sitting in the reality of what it was.
Right.
So as I shared with people, oh, I think there's a drinking problem, and they were like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, why? Say it if you see it with family and people around you. I mean, really, it's okay. Say it. And if someone doesn't want to hear it, they're not ready to hear it. But it's okay to say it, because that person might be like, oh my God, I'm so glad you said something. I really wanted to talk to someone.
Yeah.
Right?
So an intervention happens
Yes.
with him. And he agrees to get on a plane and go to treatment.
Yes.
And he gets on the plane and then he gets off.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I drove him to the airport. I'd found him the place. It had been everything that I ever thought he would want in a treatment facility.
Gorgeous.
I mean, like, the perfect enabler.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And everything that it's going to be great and whatever, and I'll get on the plane with you. And I spent the car ride to the airport being just berated and just told how I'd effed everything up and how horrible I was and how could I do that and embarrass him in front of his family. I mean, it wasn't me doing, I wasn't even throwing the intervention. It was family and other people all coming together knowing that this was a problem. And so I was berated all the way to the airport, got to the airport, and then the apology. I'm sorry, I can do this, and I love you, and I don't want to be apart, and I don't want to lose you, and I can do this, and all these things happening from, like, even the airplane. And then all of a sudden, texts kept coming in when I knew the airplane was supposed to have left. And I was like, God damn it. You didn't get on the plane. And then a text came in and was like, I didn't get on the plane. I can do this without it. And I was like,
Yeah, no.
hi, I'm looking for a lawyer.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And
that was
it.
the straw that broke
That
the
was
camel's
it,
back.
yeah.
So then you were done.
That was done.
You were done.
Yeah.
And so it's time to separate. You ultimately, you won a very hard-fought battle, very messy, hard-fought battle, and gained successful sole custody of your son.
I did. But let's just say it took a person digging their own hole. And the justice system is not proactive for children. They are reactive.
Yeah.
And I have been immersed in it for years and researched and worked. And thank God I had a job where sometimes I spent 7 hours a day on my divorce because I wasn't working on the divorce of how are we going to split up our retirement. I was working on how do I protect a minor child. So it took actually that person kind of eventually digging their own hole and then the court going, oh wait a second. And I was like I said, for the last 3 years.
Why did it take this long?
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you inadvertently meet your ex-husband's now new fiance.
Yeah. There were a lot of them in there. Let me just tell you.
Because
This one was special, though. I like her.
Because of a phone call. Tell us about that phone call.
Let's see. So it was maybe 8 months into my serving papers in the divorce process. And I knew, there are multiple women who had already come out of the woodwork reaching out to me in regards to things that had happened during my marriage that I didn't know about. So these women were now becoming friends of mine. And another friend said, you've kind of become like the president of the club that you don't want to be president of. And I was like, why am I helping these people? I don't know what's going on. But because there was, the people would call me and they would go, I think he's cheating on me and I think something's going on. And then the woman would go, I just told his wife that I think he's cheating on me. And I was like, it's totally fine. I'm fine with it. Yeah. I mean, it was just this weird, it went to like Dallas television show, like in a heartbeat. Yeah. Once I got out of the bad and then started seeing hints of what other people were going through, it was a drama that I can't even describe. But about 8 months after, and I get a phone call of a number I didn't recognize, and I pick it up, and the woman on the other line says, so-and-so is a pathological liar, and I'm like scared. She didn't say the word I'm scared, but she shared things that were going on very briefly, and then hung up the phone. And then I looked to the friend that I was sitting with, and they said, who was that? And I said, I think that was Nina, his new fiance. And they were like, what?
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to call her back.
Yeah.
I called her back. And we talked for an hour and a half about what she was going through. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I mean, there's some crazy drama ensuing in all of it. Underneath everything, this is a very dangerous situation.
Yes.
I know this. I'm now separate, and I have, but I know that whatever someone's going through, it's actually getting worse. Because number one, just alcoholism is progressive. It's a progressive disease.
Right.
It does not get better. And when there's violence and rages and whatever other dual addictions or other issues that are going on along with those things, those are going to become exacerbated and get worse. So whatever I was dealing with, all these other people are dealing with something much worse.
Yeah, good point.
And it's not going to it's getting worse faster.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you and Nina form a bond.
We did.
And
but not too bondy. More like call me if you need me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just say call me if you need me.
Yeah.
Right? Am I right? She's here tonight.
Yeah, she's here tonight.
Yeah.
and so but eventually you do become closer friends. And then there's the brunch.
Oh,
there's the Sunday brunch that led to the nonprofit that the two of you co-founded called And Now She Rises. Tell us about the brunch.
That makes me smile, coming out of all of that heaviness, to think that our stories come together and become something really powerful for someone else, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we never know how what we're doing can touch other people. So we had a brunch, which is so great to have a drink in the day with a girlfriend.
Day drinking.
Come on. Right? I think we're at Martina's in Linden Hills. And we had this great conversation talking about life and things, and we're both like super type A crazy, like, I mean, obviously, look at me. But I'm just, we're just like, what's next, and talking about our lives. And as we're leaving, now, she was already really an advocate for women's issues. I knew I wanted to start a nonprofit, but we'd never connected dots there, right? And so she says to me outside of the car, hey, I'm going to be volunteering with Tubman, And they have a thing called Harriet's Closet, which is where women who are staying at the shelter can go and they can pick out clothes twice a month in this closet. And they can use those clothes for job interviews or for court appearances. And of course, women that are usually staying at the shelter, they've often left their house with nothing except their purse. I mean, they don't have any of their things, right?
And they're
It's-
afraid to go back to get stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So she goes, I'm going to be volunteering here. You want to do this thing with the closet? I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds so great. Okay, bye, have a good day. Hop in the car. And as soon as I get in the car, I was like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
And like our wheels were turning, and they
Yeah.
were turning separately at the same time. So I get in the car, and I'm like, and I called her, and I was like, okay, wait, we're showing out for everybody else. Like in our jobs, we both have worked for different companies. We show up for other people. We bring our A game. We give them 110%. What if we didn't show up for that? What if we did something for that was ours? What if we owned that? What if we created a nonprofit? And that's what it was. So let's throw a fashion swap where we get clothes donations that are all business garment items, the best of the best, women of, just that will go directly to Harriet's Closet, and that they are the beneficiary. Tubman is the beneficiary of it.
Right.
And we do this. And we were like, oh my God. In 8 days, we created a nonprofit, applied for our 501c3, found a venue in 24 hours. Needed is a creative director, so she created, like within 48 hours, she sends me what a creative director is going to send a pitch. If you own a company, she's going to send you, this is the new name of your company, this is what it looks like on these graphics, this is what the commercial is going to look like, this is your mission statement. I mean, she just whipped it out. So all of a sudden we're like, wow, we can do it. We have like a thing. We're like, we weren't meant to be with him. I think we were meant to be together and own a business, right? It was so beautifully just organic and just happened. And I think both of us, the flip side, the last thing is that when you come out of an abusive situation, no matter what it's like, you have an energy that you've used to fight that thing.
I'm sure, yes.
And when you try and move that energy somewhere else, you have like this light coming out of you, this amount of love and energy and positivity and need for change that you need to put towards something that is effective, that makes change, whether it's for yourself or for others.
Yeah.
So we both had this and still have this energy that is so focused on that we realize, wow, you just redirect your energy in life, and it's unbelievable how powerful it is.
Wow. And they started this nonprofit, and Now She Rises. Tell me a little bit about the mission, but what your focus is for the nonprofit.
At first we weren't even sure what it was going to be. We knew we didn't want to be a crisis center or a shelter. There were great organizations in town doing that work. We wanted to support that. And what we found is that we could have a conversation about a really tough subject in an atmosphere that was incredibly fun and engaging, in a way to bring people together. You want to go out for drinks with your girlfriends, you want to go out for an evening, but also do something for good?
Yeah.
We can create an event around that then all of the benefit of that, like last night, you guys, we had a bra drive at Modest Brewery, where we've partnered with Modest Brewery now 2 years in a row for International Women's Day. They create a special International Women's Day brew. Part of their proceeds they give back to And Now She Rises, which is amazing. So go have a beer at Modest if you drink it. And then we did this bra drive last night because bras, they have to be new, they're expensive. They're something that the shelters, which don't have funding right now. So what we try and do is figure out what is the greatest need for each of these organizations and provide that to them. Have an event where we can bring people together and be like, bring a bra. Cover is free for the concert that we're throwing. And it's amazing how the community has come together around our events like that.
So quickly. So I'm so impressed. They have this fabulous website, andnowsherises.org.
Yes.
There is a poem on the homepage of your website that I found to be incredibly stunning. And now, with Amy's permission, our Zippy Laske has set it to music.
I said I was leaving, so he left me for dead. And now I rise.
got the type of bruises no one can see. And now I rise.
I lost my job and my sobriety, and now I rise.
She is the light you try to stifle in your chokehold. She's the rubble that you carelessly use to cover your trouble. She is the one you left for dead, thinking she'd never rise again. And now she rises.
I endured endless attacks on my integrity, and now I rise.
Gudatsa kucheneng jongshia and pashino gusho. I lied to everyone about my perfect family, and now I rise.
Aprendí que su enfermedad no es excusa, y ahora me levanto. I learned his illness is not an excuse, and now I rise.
She is the lie you try to stifle in your chokehold. She's the rubble that you carelessly use to cover your trouble. She is the one you left for dead, thinking she'd never rise again. And now she rises.
I broke out of the trauma bonds he had created, and now I rise.
I stopped making excuses for him.
And now she rises.
And now I rise.
I stopped believing it was my fault, and now I rise.
I sought truth relentlessly.
And now she rises.
I rediscovered who I was.
I exhaled.
And now she rises. And now she rises.
Thank you, Amy Matthews. Thank you so much for your bravery and your courage. And thank you for celebrating International Women's Day with us. Silvia Pontaza, Day Yang, Nancy Bagshaw-Reasoner, Zippy Laske. Tonight's episode was written by Silvia, Day, Sue, Nancy, and Zippy. Thanks to our lovely engineer and male ally, Zachary Thayer. And thanks to our assistant, Hannah McDonald. Thank you to the wonderful staff here at Crooner Supper Club. We will be back next month with another live Island of Discarded Women. Thank you, everybody. I'm Sue Scott. Thank you. Good night.
Try to stifle in your chokehold. She's the rubble that you carelessly used to cover your trouble.